either way. I always list all my authors, so these aren't ghostwriters. Just they get paid up front instead of pay a royalty share at the end, and then I always pay bonuses as well based on book performance. So those things, from a business perspective, those things go to cash flow, because my goal was 60 books published in 2019, which is pretty much one a week, and then you throw in the box sets or collections, a couple anthologies, and then there you go, Bob's your uncle. You've got a book a week. To do that, you need to have the covers lined up. You need to have the editing horsepower lined up. You need to have the setup in the books themselves, because I have a readership now, a voracious readership that is good with a book a week, and they like what they like. So in order to, a new series that's starting off, Metal Legion, is going to hit December 17th, just because the books were ready so much earlier than I had suspected, thanks to Caleb Wachter doing a great job as a writer and making it really easy on me to punch up. And I read every word of these collaborated books. So it is time consuming, but it's rewarding as well. So that book, 17th of December, the first book in that series comes out. It's military sci-fi. It's probably the best stuff I'll have available. And we're publishing the first 4 books every 2 weeks. So 17th, December 31st, January 14th, January 28th. And to do that, yes, we had to have, actually I have 3 books sitting right now. 2 are done, 2 are blurbed, 2 are edited, 2 are, all 4 have covers. So that's how you do it. Now, we have costs. My costs right now for work for hire for books that are being written next year are about 10 grand a month, paying for words. Paying, $1,000, $2,000 a month for covers for next year. I could take the whole first quarter off and not pay for another word or another cover, and I have those books. So for me to ratchet up my profitability, my cash flow for a month, I could just cut off future work, but I'm not going to do that, because I do have enough of a cash working capital to keep that all flowing. So I can keep spending 10 to 20 grand a month on future works. I'll publish 4 books in December. So that's January, end of February, I'll see that revenue. And I'll continue to have those $10,000 to $15,000 costs. So by the time I see this revenue, I will have already spent $60,000 on costs for books, for covers and stuff like that, before I see that very first, hopefully 10 to 20 grand in revenue. And then come January, with 4 books in December, 4 books in January, I think 6 books in February. So by the time that's rolling, and then the end of next year, depending on how we're doing, we can keep spending 10 to 15, but I expect to be making about 50 a month come March or April, because of these series, and every new book helps the last book get a bump, and you see your tails are fatter. Everybody loves a big old fat tail on their book report view. And so you see higher bumps on the first one, you see the bigger tail, and all of a sudden your chart needs new levels because it's going so high. So, and if I'm only making 10 to 20 come March, then I've got serious issues with my business plan and my marketing and stuff like that. But I've taken steps to improve my marketing going forward. We've already seen some big benefits. So I don't see any issues with this plan and this effort, because Mill Sci-Fi, what I've seen is that is my hot market. That is where I have the most readers. Out of all of my readership that likes this, or this, all of them like good Mill Sci-Fi. The Super Dreadnought series has done really well and continues to do really well. The worst ranked book in that series is ranked 3,000, so it's doing really well.
That's great.
And then Metal Legion is even better. I actually think from an artistic point of view is twice as good. And Super Dreadnought is good, but the readers, the beta readers, I had 20 beta readers, and all of them said this is a great book, great story, good flow, good action. So, and that bolsters my efforts, and also encourages me to keep the foot on the pedal, as it may be, and allocate 15 grand a month in costs to keep all of this going forward, even though I've got 4 books paid for and we haven't published the first one yet.
Mm-hmm.
So there is risk in that, unless you've already published 70 books and you know this book's going to be a winner.
Yeah. Before we kind of go into that whole working capital thing, what made you decide to go into this new kind of accelerated growth where you're kind of acting more as a publisher and show running this universe that you've been building?
In a previous life, I was a business diagnostics, a business analyst, business coach in Fortune 100 companies. So for me, I like writing the stories. I like telling the stories, but I've published over 3 million words so far, and my storytelling is okay. So I'm stepping back to take longer to tell a story, but that's because I've got all this business stuff that's in my mind is really cool and sexy. And so it's just a personal goal to, hey, I want to hit 50 grand a month. I want to hit 100 grand in a month, and to keep that rolling. Just from a business analytics perspective, I spent 7.5 years on the road, gone half my life away from home to do this for other clients. And I want to do it for myself. See this business growth in such a way that I can maximize profitability, margin, and also personally, once I find that book and series that is the home run, that is the runaway bestseller, then I want to exploit that and see if I can replicate that success. Because where's that artistic balance to make sure that you sell 100,000 copies of a book in its first month? How do you do that again? And with my backlist, if I have a runaway bestseller like that, be going to Bali every month. No, but it will be nice to see. We'll be able to do other events, and I see events like 20 Books Vegas being half the cost because I'll sponsor it and shit like that. I'm sorry, stuff like that. This is why YouTube.
No, that's great. And I think that's what I've observed with some of the authors that are, working with me, that are really starting to ratchet things up. What their specific project may be that they're into may be different. Like for you, it's kind of building this world and getting some other people writing with you. Worked with somebody that's just finished up a movie that they funded themselves. I know some other projects that I can't quite talk about right now that are pretty cool stuff. Is getting those opportunities to do that and being able to fund it. That's great when you get to that level of success, but the same issue is for everybody, and that is understanding your working capital needs for those plans. And you mentioned before we hopped on that in 2018, one of the things that you bumped up against was capital constraints. You want to talk about that a bit?
As I was moving into some work for hire, pay now for a book later, and also buying covers up front. I bought an 8-pack of covers for Super Dreadnought up front in 1 month. And now all of a sudden, and this was a low month, I had a month that was a little lower in sales. I mean, not bad, but still a little lower in sales. So a $12,000 month, all of a sudden I had $20,000 in expenses. And I'm like, ooh, hey, if I keep the foot on the pedal like this right now, and next month my revenue will pick up, but I don't want to be revenue negative, have negative profitability after costs for more than 1 month in a row. I mean, I did that my first year, but I had enough working capital to get through I figured 12 months to profitability. And it took me my 13th book before I actually I got into the black for the year. And that was because I had a massive month. I had all the way up to a $3,000 month, and then it tapered down. But then in December of my first year publishing, I had a $10,000 month, and that bolstered me just barely, like a few $100 into the black for the year. So, because I was buying top end covers, I was doing that kind of stuff, and but I was okay. I had that money set aside. So at that point in time, it was still kind of just a hobby. I spent what I needed to spend. I had the money, and if I didn't make anything, so be it. At least I had a dozen books published, and life was good. Hey, I'm a professional author because they sold to strangers. But then I started making money, and I saw that, hey, a $10,000 a month. Oh man, if you can replicate that for a year, that's not bad money. That's almost what I was making doing the lawyer thing as a business consultant. And actually, that was my lowest month since then. I have never had a month that low since December of 2017. It's rewarding in that regard. And as a business specialist, getting back to your one point, why would I keep pressing and keep that going forward? Because if I need to spend 15 to make 20, I'm okay with that. But if I need to spend 15 and I can make 50, then that's really what I want to get to. Is that I spend 10 to 15 to make 50 or 100, and I'll keep that pressure on from my personal business analyst perspective, that reduce costs, increase margin, whatever it might be, to analyze my business and keep it moving forward.
Yeah.
As well as the artistic part of publishing good books that people want to read. We have some great stories coming up. I am so pleased with the direction that we've gone with the new body of work. And 2 years ago, if you would have told me, hey man, 2 years from now, you're going to be sitting on 8 full-length books and not publish them because you're waiting for this opportunity, waiting for traditional publishers to stop throwing their money at the market, at the advertising market, catch them right at the end of that wave, and then you're going to publish. Because 2 years ago, if I had a book ready, I'd have published it right now. And I've got 8 of them sitting here. Great stories that people aren't reading and aren't buying. So
it's funny you say that. I was talking to somebody last night who helps authors with marketing, and she was talking about just having some patience and doing it right. That because of rapid release and just the urgency to try and make money, you're pushing these books out, and you may make mistakes that you don't get the full value out of that. And it also made me think about when I talked to Michael Sullivan. He's basically sitting on 3 books at any time, and he's really kind of built an interesting model with. He's on a traditional publishing schedule because he distributes his own books into the traditional publishing, but his fans can get his books 9 months early when they buy on Kickstarter, right? So like he's got this ecosystem that he's built that works really well for him, and he knows he can work at his pace. They understand that when the books are coming out. And he's really built himself a nice revenue machine.
It's a great business model. I follow him closely, and I've had some good conversations with him, and he gets it. He really does get it. Another one is Kevin J. Anderson, another traditionally published author who is making that jump into self-publishing with some works. And their understanding and their incremental approach, as opposed to just diving in and say, let's do the self-pub thing now. No, they're managing it like a business. And that's what I see. Michael Anderley and I had the pleasure of dinner with Mark Dawson and Joanna Penn when we were in London. And I think the difference between somebody making 7 figures in a year and somebody going into 6 figures, even if it's mid-6, is that keen business mind and understanding of the business aspects of the creative side of the business of self-publishing. You have to look at your costs. You have to look at your revenue stream. You have to look at opportunity, and you have to embrace that. You can't just say, well, I do it, I hate it, and I do it because I have to. You could have great stories and you can make 300,000 in a year. But if you want to make $1 million, you have to embrace it and say the business is every bit as important as the great story.
Well, I've talked to a couple authors, over 30 authors. I had one-on-ones at the 20 books, And one of the things that I kept mentioning to them is that, you know, the industry is changing very fast, right? And where 18 months ago, it made business sense to get out there and start capturing customers with just getting stories out there. Now that doesn't really necessarily work, right? I mean, when you think about, you know, I can think of 3 or 4 authors right now that are putting out at least a book a week, right? So you're not going to outproduce them. So what do you fall back on? And it's kind of what you see these other folks doing. What you're trying to do is you just have to get back to basics, and that is good story and a brand promise to your customers that you're going to deliver on, you know, book by book, chapter by chapter, word by word.
Building the readership and the word of the year, and I'll quote Michael Anderle, the word of the year is discoverability. There are, over 1 billion readers of English that read English novels written in English. 1 billion readers. Okay, you don't have to tap a very big part of that market, but they all look in different places, and some of them aren't looking for books at all. But if you can find them, and that's, I think, one of my best marketing opportunities is my old man, who is an IRS tax agent, right? He works at H&R Block and does taxes, but he keeps my books on his desk. So while he's crunching numbers, people have one of my books and they're thumbing through it. He's like, "Hey, here's my son's book. Read it while I'm doing your taxes." No kidding. And yeah, I've made some sales. I've gotten people subscribed to my newsletter because he keeps a stack of my business cards right next to his. He's been working for H&R Block for 30 some years. He does whatever the hell he wants. So it works. But all of those things, Scott Paul, he has a van with his covers by Heather Hamilton Center wrapped around his van. So he drives, his mileage counts as advertising mileage if he's going between A and B. I mean, there's certain restrictions within your state, but still, all of those different things for discoverability. You want people to look at your name. That's why when you see political ads, it's the name, because they want that name recognition. When you look at that ballot, oh, hey, I remember Joe Solari.
Mm-hmm.
Vote for Joe. Whatever it means, they don't care about your platform. It's red, it's blue background, and it's Joe Solari. That's it for the political ads now, because you want to have that name recognition. When you go in through an airport, you see books by Neil Gaiman, you see books by James Patterson, you see Nora Roberts, J.D. Robb. You see those people. You go to the grocery store, they're at the checkout counter. You go anywhere else, they're there. You go into Barnes & Noble, they're on that front table, which I've heard is like $100,000 to $200,000.
Wow.
That the publishing companies are paying to BNN just for that product placement and nothing else. So that's why you see the same authors all the time right on that front table when you go in, because the traditional publishers are paying a lot of towards BNN's margin to get that product placement. Probably the same for grocery stores. So are we going to get that as indies? Probably not. But where else are we seen? People live on the internet. How do you get seen? Facebook ads, AMS ads. Somebody goes shopping somewhere. I see Drudge Report. They have 1 million visit. What you think about politics is irrelevant. They have 1 million visitors. I think it's 1 billion a month is what they've hit. So 1 billion a month. Click on Drudge Report. If you write conservative political satire, something like that, it might be worth an ad. They're not extreme. I think to run for a day, it was $1,000, $1,500 or something like that to put your ad as a floating ad on Drudge Report.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. Discoverability is the word. So however you can do that. I've seen people take bookmarks in bookstores and slip them in books that have their stuff. I wouldn't want to do that because I wouldn't want to be blacklisted by the bookstore, because my books are in BNN, some of them anyway, and I don't want to get blacklisted.
Well, and I think to that point, I know there's a lot of people that are concerned with what's going on with advertising right now, and there's been a lot of changes.
And it got more expensive.
It's got more expensive. It's going to get more expensive, but you know, what we have to remember is that the companies that are making all this money off of advertising. So we're talking about Facebook, Google, and Amazon. Their they're investing enormous amounts of that money back into figuring out how to be even more poignant with their advertising, right? I was listening to a guy talking about the machine learning at Google that they're going to be applying to advertising, right? So they don't want to be just about AdWords. They want to know, with all the data that they can see, whether it's from your phone or on YouTube, it's like, hey, Craig's washing machine is broken, okay? They'd love to be able to figure out, maybe even from that washing machine, is it broken so bad that we should send them an ad to buy a new washing machine rather than an ad for a repairman, right? But that's stuff that's coming that as authors will have to help with that discoverability, right? You know, some of the stuff that I've been doing with direct sales, you know, you forego one sense of discoverability in the massive platform of Amazon readers. But what you can then do is you can start to use some of these tools, like giving conversion data back to Facebook so they can use that to close the loop and say, okay, well, you know, we send the ad to all these people and these 5 people bought this week. What can we tell about those people to find more of those people, right? And the machine will do that so much better than we will ever be able to do.
Yeah. But then we get advised better by Google, by AMS. Hey, here's how you want to target your keywords and stuff like that. Especially as once people figure out, hey, here's what Google did with those 5 readers. Here's how they've identified them as a sub-demographic that you can then target for future works to make their job easier, to help you help them make you money.
Yeah, yeah, because in their perfect world, they send you just the right advertising. They don't want to swamp you. They want you to just get the stuff that you need to know. And if you're an avid middle sci-fi reader, then they want to get you Craig Martell stuff, right?
They do.
And then
they
if
do want to get you my stuff.
and then send you more, right? But so one of the things we should really hit on, you mentioned it earlier in kind of the bumping into the working capital issues. This is, you know, working capital issues are an issue for any business, right? This is what kills more businesses than anything else in the history of business killing, is they run out of money, right? Like,
well, that or the theory of constraints. Because for me, if I'm going to publish next year, the estimate is 3.5 million words. Getting 3.5 million words edited is nothing to sneeze at. So I had to get editors lined up starting last year. I buy their time, but I don't buy their exact schedule. So sometimes I end up paying more, and that's okay. Sometimes I prepay in order to get priority. I do what I have to do to make those editors available to me when I need them. So I looked at what were my constraints were covers, editors, editing, and the words themselves. Okay, those are your 3 production elements. You can advertise. If you want to run a promotion, you need to think about 2 months out. But to actually just publish a book, all you need is that cover. All you need is the good words, and I prefer that they're edited good words. So that's it. I can do a blurb and stuff. I can do that in a day. I can do whatever. I've got a lot of blurbs and keywords and those lists. So having to get that set up is something that you have to do as well. You have to remove your funnels, your roadblocks. And then the other thing is, how do I pay for that? And that's where the money comes in. But it first starts, you've got to identify your logistics chain. What does it take to get these words done and ready? Because I needed to get the authors started on the process. Sometimes I had to get the outline done. So now I have to get creative and then pay as well. So you do all of that, but if you don't have the money, then you cannot prepay an editor if you don't have the working capital to do that. And so it goes hand in hand. You've got to identify what you need to spend your money on.
For sure. And, you know, for any folks, Craig mentioned theory of constraints. We have an episode that we did on that about a year ago that gets into that as a strategy. It's used mainly in manufacturing to improve your manufacturing processes, but it's just as applicable to any process where there can be constraints or bottlenecks to how you make things. And to your point, I mean, you're playing with some larger numbers, but the same things are the issue. And when I would talk to authors at the 20 Books conference, they, you know, a lot of them came to me and like, well, what about setting up a business? What about my LLC? And I'd be like, well, where you're at in your career, your money needs to go into a book cover and editing, nothing else, right? Like you need to make a stellar product to send out into the marketplace and find your audience. Then you got a product to sell, you've got a business. And
it starts there. And that's, if I can interrupt,
yeah.
Michael Anderle talked about the minimum viable product. I see a lot of new authors who say, oh, I haven't published my first book yet, but because I want to have 3 done before I publish that first one in order to rapid release and make the best money. I would say stop. You have to make sure that first book will sell. And so that's, it is so critical, like you just said, have your great book with a catching cover, a good blurb that's ad copy, not a synopsis of the book. And then you can start and say, is this book going to sell before you invest all that time, especially if you write 3 books a year. Here's a year of your life. And if that first book doesn't sell for some fatal flaw that you never saw, then you're sitting on 2 books and a year of your life and have no money to show for it. And dejection sets in and now you feel horrible about yourself. And it may be little things in the book that are fixable if you go after them early. So building up slow, people want that home run right out of the gate. My first book was horrible. It was a good story, but it wasn't edited. It had a PowerPoint cover that I did myself. So it was really, really low cost, as in no cost to get it onto Amazon in the first place. But it also got me a TradPub contract for that book. They just said, you need to change the title, the cover, get it edited, get it beta read, and then, hey, it's going to be a great book. How do you know that if you don't publish it? So you've got to get that first book out there in some way to get reasonable feedback from people who aren't your family, unless they're honest and straightforward and good beta readers who read your genre, and then move forward. If you spend a career writing books that you've never gotten any feedback on, you don't know, and that's worse than what I'm doing. I'm publishing 5 different series in 2 or 3 different genres. So some may say, well, you're throwing mud at the wall and hoping something sticks. Well, I'm throwing mud at the wall. I know I'm going to make X amount per book, but I'm hoping one of those books is, you know, a runaway bestseller. So I know they're going to sell. I know I'm going to get my money back at least, but I want to make money. So how do you do that is you find that product first.
Yeah. And I think, you know, I had 2 people come to me with this where it's like, hey, you know, my plan is you know, I've got enough money for books 1 and 2, and then I expect to have, you know, I'm going to get those launched, and then I'll have the money to do the cover and editing for book 3. And you know, the best business advice I could think to give them is that you need to rethink that plan, right? Like that's not a viable plan for a good launch, because if you're out promoting this as a 3-book series, and book 3 is contingent on funding from the first 2 books, you've got a fatal flaw that, you know, if you don't get that money, you're going to not deliver on your brand promise of a 3-book series. So back up and make sure that you've got that money, right? And then you start to think about it, like then it starts to relieve some pressure, because it's like, well, the reality is that it's going to take me 6-8 months to save up, let's say $4,000 to do that work. Now I've got more time to get that writing done, right? I'm not trying to like jam all those words in 90 days so that I can launch quicker. And you start to get a more realistic plan. And, you know, a lot of folks that I saw fail in the last year, it's just because of that. They may have had the capacity to write a book a month, but they never had the cash to put out a book.
Edit and cover a book a month. Yeah.
Right. So
it's a shortcoming, and a lot of people look at is collaboration right? Somebody that can help with that, and that may be the case, but don't count on that, because somebody may not like the way you write. or not like the storyline, the genre, whatever it might be. You've got to be able to self-support for the first few books, and that first book especially. You've got to be able to do that solo, just so you can establish, here's what my process is. The second and third book, you'll improve, continuous improvement mentality. I've seen people take 10 years on the first book, a year on the second book, and a third book they do in 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
Anything you do repeatedly, you're going to be doing better the second, third, fourth time. And that's the learning curve. It's really steep at the beginning. That's why they say steep learning curve. By the second one, it will be, because it's an 85% rule, 85%, second one, 85%, 85%. And pretty soon you can write a book a month. If you're doing it full time, if you're not doing it full time. And a book a month is an irrelevant point. What works for you? Joe was talking about brand. If you promise a book a month, then you better deliver a book a month. And then that's almost like work. If you promise 3 books in a year and you can really write 2, now that's like work, because now you're forcing yourself when previously you wouldn't have been writing. You're taking time away from your family. You're taking other time that you didn't really want to take. So you got to know your capacity, because when I projected for 2017, because I was in the same boat as everybody else. And now I have an editor on salary, but then it's like I needed to get my editor locked on 2 to 3 months in advance. Hey, I will have a book this date. And I hit all of those dates, writing a book a month, but I was writing full time. And I'd already known that, hey, it took me 28 days to write my third book. My fourth book, I wrote in 24 days and so on. And I was like, hey, look at that. Okay, now give myself a week off, 1 a month. So that's how I came up with 1 a month. And I hit those numbers because I had to, because my editor was waiting and I wanted that book edited. And so I'd usually give it to her 1 day early. Say, hey, I'd send her a note a week early saying, hey, it's on track. I'll give it to you this date. And I'd give it to her 1 day early. And then she would get it back to me within a week. And that worked for me then. Now on staff, okay, here I got 2 books coming next week. Here you go, kind of thing. And, but you build up to that.
Sure. Oh, and I think there's two things you made me think about. One is the whole idea of working with other writers. From my perspective, what I've seen is that works real well for some people, and for other people it doesn't. And I know I can think of a specific instance, not that this makes it a rule, but 2 very successful writers writing on their own, when they work together, the series tanked, right? And there's more than one of those that I know of and that's just because when they're creating on their own, they were able to do something pretty spectacular. Both of those people came into that project like, this is exciting. I want to work with this guy. He's kind of a hero of mine. We see things alike. But once they start doing a different process, some of that secret sauce is lost. And the readers sniff it out and they're like, not my book.
Well, also the collaborations. You think, well, if you got 2 people working on a book, it'll take half the time. Well, that's the 9. You get 9 pregnant women together and they'll have a baby in 1 month attitude. When 2 people work on something, you can assume that it will take twice as long as if you did it yourself, at least at the beginning. So that's why I started these collaborations in July for next year release. And the one came through swimmingly, and that's why we're releasing 2 in December, because they went really, really well. What a great, it was a collaboration that you dream about. Hey, here's the words. Hey, here's my input on the words. Oh man, that's great. Look at this. Oh man, that's great. Look at this. Here, do this. And it flowed. I have, I say fired, but I have let go 35 different potential collaborators because they didn't gel, didn't meet deadlines, didn't. I wrote the first chapter of a story. Hey, here's the setup. I had one collaborator go back and actually say, oh, I edited your first chapter so it blended better with my second chapter. So needless to say, that person isn't collaborating anymore. And because we have certain things we want to do. And Collaboration, it's like dating. It's like a marriage. You really have to go into it open, ask good questions, be open to change, because nobody marries that person that they don't want them to change somehow
Mm.
after you've already put on the ring. So I just understand that's going to happen. Assess twice the amount of time until you hit your stride, and then you'll be right in there.
Well, and from the folks that I've talked to that are doing it, um, the number of folks that they've fired or walked away from or dropped, it's like 30 times the number of deals they have going. It's really crazy how many frogs they have to kiss. And the better you are, if you are looking at that from what I've observed, the faster that you can get to that point and figure that out, the better you're going to be. Because, in fact, I was talking to one person, and they've got basically like a process that they throw these collaborators into first off, and it is only there just to vet them to see if they have the similar work ethic.
Yeah, that's Michael Anderle and I will be on Facebook Live on Friday morning talking about collaborations and what it takes. And the two big things we want to talk about is selecting a collaborator, and then how that works towards the flow once you have the collaborator. But selecting is probably 50% of the battle. Once you have a collaborator, somebody you can work with, then the world is a better place. And being able to vet them quickly is so important, because it is a huge time sink. 35 different people I worked with, I chatted with, I talked with on the phone, I read through their stuff, I edited their stuff, and it didn't work out. Those are all words, and especially if I did any rewriting, those are all words that went to waste, all time that went to waste. And at this point in my career, I don't have that time to waste.
Yeah.
I look at every minute as an investment.
No, it's true. So we're coming up on our time here. What other kind of tidbits do you have as far as planning and things that maybe this year that you didn't know 12 months ago?
Taxes are coming up. The last estimate is January 15th. So I was just looking at, I look at my numbers every day. I look at revenue, I look at expenses, and I had my estimate amount that the IRS said you should pay each quarter. And I've paid that. And I'm looking at, when I make that payment on January 15th, I'm looking at actually paying my taxes and being done with it. I hate letting them hang out. So the only thing that will follow is the paperwork. What I love about doing taxes is being as close to not owing them and them not owing me as possible, because then they're not holding on to my money, and I'm not writing a big check. I know that the money in my account is mine to use to further my business or waste on vacation, whichever it might be. So be aware, and that's my personal process, because I hate going back and saying, oh man, it's April 15th. I have this huge check that I have to write from 2018, from a year ago. I hate to. I have no loans. I mean, I have my mortgage, but my goal is next year I want to pay that off. Just write a check and be done. Pay off my mortgage, and then I will owe nobody anything. And that's where I'm at right now. I'm at just that one bill. So I hate the thought of, oh man, I have this one bill. Oh, by the way, and I have this big check due from the IRS as well. I don't want that. So I like paying January 15th. I'm going to make my estimate. It's going to be as close to possible as I can get to pay off my taxes from 2018 and be done with it. Now, the good news is I had a massive October. So that payday from at the end of December, there it is.
Yeah. Kind of following on the same suit, what I would say is, for any folks that are thinking that tax management means spending a lot of money at the end of the year, that's not a good idea. The first thing you should do is figure out in the process of getting ready for 2019, how much money you think you're going to need for working capital for 2019, and make sure that you leave that money in the business, right? So yeah, it's income and you're gonna pay taxes on that, but then you're done paying taxes, and those retained earnings are there as working capital to make more money, right? If you're, in your case, you're saying you're getting a 50% return on your money. Why wouldn't you want to leave $50,000 there versus in your personal savings account, right?
You bet 50 or 100 and keep that as working capital throughout the year, and then add to it a little bit each year as the business grows. Or if it contracts, then I don't need to leave that much in there, and it's all okay. But you've got to have that business plan and know what you're going to spend, but don't move your money back and forth. Keep it where you can use it to grow your business, but within reason. Don't keep 100 grand there if you're only going to use 5 grand.
Right.
Get it into a place where it can be making money for you, whether it's a money market or whatever. Your money should always be looking to make more money.
Sure.
That's the great thing about money. That's what rich people say. It takes money to make money. Well, when you have money, use it to make more money. Don't let it just sit there doing nothing.
Right. And to that point, there's kind of this old school mentality that I hear some folks talk about when you're running a business on a cash basis. It's like, well, if I spend it in 2018, I won't have to pay the taxes on it. And I know I have this revenue that's going to drop from this year because my 60-day delay on revenues into 2019. It's like, don't play that game. Eventually it all washes out. If you do have a chunk of money that you're trying to figure out what to do and you want to be the most tax efficient, set up a 401k or a SEP and move the money into there, right? The government has set up the IRS not just to collect money, but as behavior modification. Right.
And author business. Okay, a lot of people don't have any money left at the end of the year, and that's okay. To deduct your expenses, you need to make it in revenue. So to deduct $2,000 in expenses, you have to make $2,000 in revenue. You can do a carryover. That's what 1 year. Usually, you carry over business losses for 1 year, 2 years, something like that. You've got to make a profit 2 years out of 5 in order to be a viable business. Otherwise, you lose that deduction. That's why you see so many businesses roll up after 4 years, and then they start a new business so then they can get the deductions until they show that they're not viable as a business. Don't be that person. If you have nothing, if you haven't made a profit enough to offset your deductions, that's okay. Fill out your Schedule C, do what you need to do to show that loss, and then you can carry over that loss to next year when hopefully you will make some money. But don't be looking at, well, hey, I can write off my trip to Bali. Well, if it's $10,000 for your trip to Bali and you only made $2,000, an $8,000 carryover on loss isn't. You can't deduct that if you don't make that money back. So at some point in time, you have to make that money in order to get the full value of the deduction.
And that's, hopefully we're helping folks understand that this isn't just like go around and spend money on silly stuff. Is, if you don't have the money to do it, like you're a unique situation because of your career path. You were able to kind of set out a year of your life and have the working capital to do that. For most folks, they're doing this in a side, as a side hustle to their main job. Save your money, understand how much you're going to save. Like, it's not hard. Like, you can do it. This entire plan can be on a Post-it note.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like, it could be editing. It can be your book covers, and then go and save that money and invest that in this business. Even though you haven't set it up as a different structure, you're treating it like a business on that Post-it note. And then you're going to know what your return is. Okay. Great thing about books is once they're out there, they continue to make money.
They have that opportunity to make money at any point in time. Exactly. Now, if your computer's 6 years old and you're looking at a new computer and you think, well, I'll just buy it January 1st, buy it December 31st and write it off this year. There's no sense wasting a deductible expense if you need it. If you have enough revenue, say, hey, it is time to buy myself and get it on sale. Don't piss away your money. Spend what you have to spend, but get it on sale. Black Friday's over, Cyber Monday's over, but the after Christmas sales, you may see like last year's MacBook Pro available at a discount. Why not buy it at a discount?
Mm-hmm.
Because if you have $100 and you spend $90, well, a tax man has access to those last 10, but you have only $10. But if you make $100 and you spend 50, now you have 50. Taxman will take their cut, but still you have a hell of a lot more money in your pocket.
Mm-hmm.
So manage your expenses, increase your revenue, and that's what 20 Books of 50K is about. Hey, some marketing ideas, some various things to help you sell more books, and work your revenue versus costs, manage your margins, and make them as big as possible, and see the profitability and see the wondrous nature and how exciting it is to manage a successful business.
Yeah. Well, and that's it. Like, if, let's say at the end of the year, after you've done your expenses, you've got a $10,000 profit, right? If you're trying to figure out what to do with that money, if your business is delivering the kind of return that we're talking about, and the great threshold is this: if your business isn't doing better than the S&P 500 return, right? Now you've got a real easy binary decision. If it's better, leave the money in the business. If it's not, it should go into your 401k or SEP, where it's now at that return rate and it's tax deferred. It's going to do better. And so now that gives you a threshold for your business. Your books, the money, the profits you make from what you invest in book selling should be better than what you can get in the marketplace.
That's a good target.
Yeah.
Are you making 20% on your money? Or are you making 100%? Or are you making 2%?
Yeah. Oh, and by the way, and this is something I talked about at 20 Books, if you're funding yourself with your credit cards, which we know a lot of people are doing, it's not the S&P 500 return anymore. It's your APR on the credit card.
Yep. Your annual percentage rate.
Right?
Yep.
So if it's a 19% credit card, then when every dollar you're using off of that debt better be returning at least 19%.
Just to break even.
Just to break even. Yeah.
Yep.
So any parting words?
Keep getting the words. You can't edit a blank page, and you can't sell a blank page unless you do that low content book things like notebooks and stuff. But I don't understand any of that. You have a really cool cover on a book of empty pages, and those sell pretty well because people do need notebooks. But write the words, get the good words, make them as good as possible, make tomorrow's words better than today's words, and then throw them out there to the world and get the feedback. Improve off the feedback and keep moving forward. The view out of the windshield is much better than the view in the rear view mirror. So,
amen. All right. Well, that's it. Well, let's wrap it up. And
let me say one thing that Alex Newhouse, Alex Newton from K-Lytics, one thing he said, because people are like, oh man, the heyday of 2011, 2012, when KU1 came in and we were getting paid $2 per every borrow and stuff like that. Okay, yeah, it was easy back then with the right books, and people made some good money. But Alex said there's never been a better time than today to make good money as a self-published author. And I believe that. I think today is every bit as good as can be. It's a changing marketplace, but if you can figure it out, and we're all doing this together, nobody's stiffing you on information, but it's all there. There's never been a better time to be a self-published author than right now.
That's for sure. I mean, regardless of whatever economic headwinds there are, there's never been an opportunity where the playing field's been so level that anybody can get a book published. Now, the thing you have to understand is that the market will prevail. And what I mean by that is that if you write a crappy book, it's not going to sell.
You put a great cover, a great blurb, a great marketing campaign. That first book could sell very, very well. And then that second book doesn't sell at all. That tells you that the first book had a great marketing campaign and didn't sell well. And it goes to brand. That first book needs to be the best book you can make it, within your constraints. My first book wasn't great. When I look back, I cringe when I read it. However, the story was sound enough, and people tell me that they love that series as much as anything else I've written. And I have to look and wonder. It's like, but it's not my best writing, and they don't care. The readers are looking for a certain thing, an escape from today, an escape from their reality, and that's what, as in fiction, that's what we're giving them in a story that they can follow, that reads easy, and that they get embroiled in, the characters that they care about. So write a great story, and then get feedback and write better. And that write better is my own personal idea of what better is. The readers might have liked that style from the first book.
All right, man. Well, it's great talking to you, and I hope that 2019, part of your plan is that we do more of these.
Indeed. These things are easy. They're fun. You make it a great thing to do. And your insight into business, I promise you, we'll put you on the main stage. We'll figure out what the topic will be to apply to as many people as possible. But we'll have next year, 3 main stages. I'm sorry, European. 3 main stages.
Wow.
So we're going to have the Big Red Rock, the Pioneer Room, as well as Sam's Town Live. All 3 of them will have AV. Maybe not AC, but they'll have AV, audiovisual, and they'll all be recorded. So we don't have people jumping back and forth. We're going to have a separate advanced track, and I'm still figuring out how to make that work to make sure that we keep advanced authors coming to the show. But we'll put you on the main stage in Sam's Town Live, where the audio and the visual is just incredible. So bring some slides. So we'll talk business, and or you'll talk business.
Yeah. Well,
without boring the snot out of people. That's your challenge.
Well, I usually do. They're usually pretty happy with what I do. The other thing is Lisa Gardina, who I work with, who's doing the high net worth authors, their books. She's going to be there. So
good.
She'll just.
We'll put her on stage in your old news.
Yeah, she's not big for being on stage, but she's she one-on-one. She's awesome, and she's this is who. To name drop, like I like to do with her, she was doing Oprah's books, right? Like Oprah trusted her.
Right?
Yeah, she's a CPA.
Good.
And she was originally with Price Waterhouse, and then she left there. She was with Oprah's. She ran Oprah's family office for 12 years, basically until Oprah left Chicago.
Okay. That is way cool, and that's great. The quality people that will be in Vegas. I am pleased and humbled that folks are looking to come to Vegas and share.
Yeah, and Matt came out. He flew out just for that show.
One day. Yep. That was incredible. That was incredible that he did that.
Yeah. So, and I know he helped a bunch of people. So. Anyhow, let's wrap it up there. We probably won't have another one of these before the end of the year. So, happy holidays and happy new year. And 2019 will.
Best year ever coming up.
Yep, there it is. All right. Talk to you later.
Superb. Have a good one, Joe. Thank you.
All right. The broadcast is ended.
Okay. Let me jump in. We probably had questions pop up in Facebook, and I never. It's okay. I couldn't. Because the delay. And
yeah.
Oh my God, the YouTube delay was melting my brain.
Yeah, and then I guess we were having issues with sound at some point. So I recorded it.
Okay.
So I can always